everyone. Thank you for joining us again. We are here today with Alison Ellis. She is, of course, the founder of Flower Maths, which you probably all know her well by, if you have heard of her. We are really, really excited that she is here again for another installment of Conversations with Koehler. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about profitability, right, Allison?
Yes, ma'am. That's my
I'm
jam. I love
excited.
talking
I'm ready.
pricing.
Well, let's get on to it then, because
Awesome.
people want to know how to make a dollar.
They do. It's what, it really is the thing that we come into business as florists because we love the flower side. And then you kind of lose sight sometimes of how important that business aspect is. That's, whether it's the math to make money or how you, master your sales process to bring clients in. Those things are what keep us doing the flowers. And so that's why we want to keep it up. So let me screen share my presentation here for you. Can you see me all right?
I can see those beautiful flowers. My goodness.
Awesome. Oh, I love this bouquet. It's one of my favorites. This is in my book, actually.
Oh.
This one made it into the book.
Which you can also get online.
Yes, you can. Falling into Flowers. Available now. Available wherever books are sold. Just kidding. But you can get it on Amazon and
yes, you can.
And through Wildflower Media, which is the publisher.
And we'll put links below too, so that if people want to jump on that, they can.
Awesome.
Well,
and
will some of this content be in your book?
Yes, some of it. There's more even probably more detail, like walking through the actual pricing formulas and stuff inside the book. But yeah, we definitely cover pricing inside the Falling into Flowers. And I was just going to say, it's great to, it is available on Amazon, but it's great to support the publisher and get it through Wildflower Media if you like to think that way.
Totally.
Like I do. I'm like, I'll wait a week and get it from my local bookstore.
Right? I can always wait. That's okay. If I need to pay shipping, yes, that's okay too.
Me too, my friends. Yeah, we always get along so well. So we're going to talk about florist pricing and profitability. Most important thing to know is that every florist deserves to turn a profit and work with clients who value and respect your expertise. There are too many florists who go, well, I'm new, or, well, I haven't really done that before, so I don't think I can charge for it. And I just like to debunk that myth right off the bat. Every florist deserves to turn a profit, okay? So pricing is my jam. I really could talk pricing all day long. And it's important to sort of embrace the fact that you need to know your numbers, because if you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. Ouch, ouch, right? But it's true. That's why you'll hear really, well-versed business people, entrepreneurs, CEOs, they go, well, what's the cost of doing business? And when you go, they go, you don't know. You need to know your numbers. So it can be intimidating. So we're going to dive into how to do this the easiest way possible. Most important things to focus on. First, I always like to start by introducing myself in case you don't know me. Even though I wrote a book, right? You may not have heard of me before.
Even though you should. Now is always a good time to be introduced again.
Exactly. So I'm Alison Ellis, and I started my floral design business in 2002 after 9 years of training in flower shops. So I worked in multiple shops. I was a designer, and then I became a buyer. I actually used to be a buyer while I was still in college. So I would have to kind of go to the school library and use the computer to do some online auction buying, because that's how we used to buy back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very fun and old school. But so that's sort of where I got my start. I graduated from the University of Vermont with a Bachelor of Science in Plant and Soil Science. So I do know a few things about the botanical side of our job. And I also have a minor in small business. So I kind of have this balance of the, creative plant lover side and the love of small business. I started my business in 2002, like I said, out of my second story apartment. So you don't need to have a lot to get started in this industry. And that's what makes it really special, I think, anyway. So even though I didn't have a storefront, right, I was just working out of my apartment, I invested in nothing as I started, but I printed out some business cards at Kinko's. I booked one wedding my first year in business, and I was really psyched, like I was actually in business. Then in 2015, I created Flower Math, the Florist Guide to Pricing and Profitability, to teach floral designers how to maximize their income too. So even when my business was super small and part-time, like I had one day a week where I did weekly deliveries and that one wedding, which then turned into like 5 weddings, right? I was still able to turn a profit. I knew exactly how to bring cash into my business just by following the formulas I learned in flower shops. I didn't second guess myself on value. I didn't say, well, because I don't have a cooler or because I don't have a storefront, I can't charge what I learned were the pricing formulas, right?
Right.
So I was able to turn a profit on every single order, even the small little bud vases I delivered to restaurants every week. And my business steadily grew from there. So it's so important to remember that you can maximize your profit and create beautiful designs that your clients will love. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It doesn't have to be, well, either I can make something beautiful or I can turn a profit. You can do both. This is just for fun. I just love this ranunculus photo.
Oh, so beautiful.
And you say, well, so you can look at this and say, well, how much do you charge for ranunculus, right? This is something people love to do.
Right.
How much would you charge for this? Someone actually tried to post in my group today. Can you show me a picture of your centerpieces and how much they cost? Oh, because that's going to help you, right? You need to know what it costs for you to sell a ranunculus. You need to know that for yourself. You need to know what you paid for it, how many stems you got in that bunch, and how much you mark it up for. There isn't just one answer, but it's probably anywhere between $6 to $8 a stem right now is what I would say. That's probably what you're charging for ranunculus. So today I want to really just touch on 3 pricing basics that are essential to moving forward. Whether you're starting out or you've been in business for a long time, these are for you. So first, we're going to go through how much money should a florist make. Then we're going to go over how to calculate your profit margin, and we do this as a percentage. And then how to charge for delivery and setup, because that is a question I get so much. How much would you charge for this? How do I know? And there isn't one right answer. So I'm going to walk you through how you can figure out what the right delivery and setup fee is for you. So before we dive in to those 3 pricing basics, 6 really quick pricing definitions, just so that we're on the same page.
Yeah.
There's no confusion what we're talking about. So your cost of goods sold, right? This is your COGS. This is the amount that you spend on flowers, supplies, overhead, and labor. It's all of your expenses, everything that it costs you to do business, that's your COGS. Then we've got the word markup. So this is the amount added to the wholesale cost of a commodity, in your case, your flowers and your supplies, to cover expenses and profit when setting the selling price, okay? Design fee. This is the amount that you charge for your labor / design time. Some people call it labor, some people call it design time. So I just like to make sure we're clear. It's the time you spend making the arrangement. That's your design fee. And this is different from the delivery charge. That's a different charge altogether. Then the flower math formulas. This is what that's what I call my course. And so the formulas are the flower math formulas. The industry standard formulas that florists use to calculate markups and fill orders to value. So this is how you apply your markups and design fee and how you create recipes, right? So that you don't overfill.
Yeah, recipes are really important.
What's that?
I said recipes are very important. So I'm excited to see that you put that in there.
It is critical. You will hear the word recipe a few times coming up. So I'm glad, I appreciate you appreciating that. So the profit margin, your profit margin is the percentage of profit that your company retains after deducting costs from sales revenue. So for the purpose of this discussion, when I talk about your profit margin, we're talking just about your total sale minus the cost of your flowers and supplies. Okay. That's really, really important to understand. All your other expenses are going to come out of the profit margin that I walk you through today. Your rent, I don't know your rent, so I can't tell you what your profit margin should be, but I can tell you what your profit margin should be on your cost of flowers and supplies. So that's what we're going to focus on today. And then finally, your recipe. So if you don't make recipes, if you haven't heard of recipes, right? Your recipes are the ingredient list of flowers and supplies required to fill orders to value and create accurate wholesale orders. Let me repeat that last sentence again. Create accurate wholesale orders. You don't want to over order from your wholesaler. So flower math formulas and recipes help you control your COGS so that your markups and design fee ensure maximum profit margins. Make sense?
Yes, totally. The thing I love that you're talking about with the recipes as well is that then you know that you're not scrambling at the last minute because you forgot to order a certain bunch of roses or, zinnias or gardenias or whatever it is. I think it's so important because we do quite a bit get that customer who it happens to everyone. Something slips through the cracks and, oh my gosh, they needed this and I forgot. And having that recipe really helps you stay organized. So I'm really excited to see where this goes.
Awesome. So my flower math motto is, it doesn't matter what you charge if you overbuy. Because people will say to me, well, I know the markups. Well, that's great. You should know your markups, right? But if you know the markups, but you're overspending, right? The gap, you're not going to meet your maximum profit margin. And I'm all about maximizing profits because we work way too hard as florists. Yes, we love it. We love what we do, but we work way too hard to leave money on the table. So first, I'm going to dive into how much does a florist make? So the goal is that you want to make at least a 70% profit margin. Again, we're talking about on the cost of flowers and supplies. So your labor, what you pay your employees, your overhead, your expenses, rent, bills, all the other expenses come out of that 70%. This is why it's so important to maximize that percentage because everything else you have to pay for comes out of that profit. So we need to make sure it's as high as possible. And whether you work from home or a shop, you want to follow the flower shop model for pricing so that you maximize your profitability. The other reason to do this is to be in line with what industry standards are. You don't win by being the cheapest florist, not in the long run. As Seth Godin always says, competing on price is a race to the bottom. And what do you do when you get there? What do you do when you have won the race of being the cheapest florist in your area? What prize do you get, right? Nothing.
You get a lot of work, not a lot of profit, probably.
That's right. You're busy and not profitable, right? So we want to be smart about this piece. So how do you actually get to a 70% profit? It's actually very easy. Okay, so we're going to walk through how to calculate the profit margin as a percentage. So important to note, even if you don't like math, I actually don't like math. I was just teaching third grade math to my son in the other room. I don't like that either. But I love flower math because this is how I make money, right? This is how my business stays in business. I'm going into my 19th year in business, right? So your total sale, this is before tax, minus the cost of flowers and supplies equals X. All right, so bear with me.
So I have a quick question. When
Please.
you talk about the cost of flowers, are you also including that as the markup of the flower, or is that just what you paid from the wholesaler?
Just what you paid from the wholesaler.
Okay.
And then we take that amount, right? So technically that's your profit, your X. You take that amount divided by the total sale, and that's going to give us the number Y, right? Y represents your percentage of profit, and the goal is to be 70% or more on the cost of flowers and supplies. So let me show you it in real numbers next,
Yeah.
okay? So $5,500 total sale. Let's just say this is a wedding, or if you don't do a lot of weddings, then you could be focusing on your week of sales in your shop, right? Whatever this number is. Total sales minus what you spent on flowers and supplies. $5,500 minus $1,500 in COGS equals $4,000. $4,000 divided by the total sale of 5,500 equals 0.72. That 0.72 represents 72%, okay? So this is how you can calculate your profit on every single order. I do it on every single wedding, every single time. I want to know, am I at 69%? Am I at 78% profit? Where am I? Did I fall short? Did I exceed? Because that helps keep me on point, right?
Right.
We want to set a profit goal, not a spending goal. And this is one of the big mistakes I see florists make, right? They go, well, I can spend 30%. If my goal is a 70%, then I can spend 30%.
Right.
But that's why we want to have our recipes and our wholesale order, because you see here, this order I made 72% on. So, depending on how many weddings you have or how much work you do, how many weeks in your shop, that extra 2%, or like I said, I have weddings where I'll make 78%. That adds up tremendously over time, right? So we really don't want to leave money on the table.
Well, and things change too. I mean, right now we're seeing a huge spike in freight and airfare prices, and getting flowers from point A to point B is going through the roof price wise. So when you're doing this right now versus if you were to do it 2 months ago, or if you're going to do it in the next 2 months, it might be looking a little bit different. So I think it's really good that you're doing it for every single event that you do.
Yeah. And I mean, I think people should do it as much as possible. Like if you have a shop, I would do it every week in the shop, especially if you're unsure if you're reaching your, if you're like, we got this thing, it's a well-oiled machine, like, fine, that's great. Then you don't need this. You don't need to do this. But it's really good to keep an eye on it, because we really want to keep it tight. You cannot opt out of mathematics. So just to your point, if the price of something goes up on our end, we can't opt out of that, right? We have to figure out how we keep the profits rolling.
Right.
So here's just one of my favorite examples of just like, to make it so vivid, we want to reach 70%, right? So if we're at 50%, if you're a florist operating at a 50% profit margin, if you sell just $50,000 in sales out of your home studio or out of your flower shop, then you could be leaving $10,000 in potential profit on the table because you're not reaching that 70% goal. So let's multiply it. Let's do some math. Yes. So over 2 years, right, you're at $20,000 that you could have had that you don't. 5 years, we're at 50,000, right? Wow. That you could have. It adds up so fast, right? So,
no one really, when people are like, oh, I want to win the lottery, right? Yeah. Or they're like, oh, I just need $10,000 more. Well, there's your $10,000 more right there, just by making a habit of every week going through this recipe that you've math recipe that you just stated.
Yeah. And when you really think about it, you go, well, if only I could go on vacation, right? Or if only I can, what would you do if you had $10,000 or $50,000 more. And mind you, this is only if you have $50,000 in sales.
Right.
If you sell $100,000 or $150,000 or $300,000 or more out of your shop, you're losing more, right? Every single year. So this is real money and it's your money. So like, what if you had $10,000 or $50,000 more right now in your business? You could pay yourself more, start a college fund, take vacations, save for retirement. Because yes, you may be a florist, but you need to save for retirement. Okay.
That's the thing. We need it.
Pay off your debt, right?
Yep.
Buy more plants, take fewer weddings, whatever, upgrade your cooler, like whatever you want to do,
Upgrade
you
your
now would have
website,
money.
you know, or hire someone out to do things that you don't like to do.
That's
I mean,
right.
if you have that extra money now, then that'll free you up in the long run.
And
So
it's
this is
all just because you're keeping money you're already making. This is such an important piece. It sounds kind of like a sound bite, or maybe it just does to me because I've been using this line for 5 years as I sell my flower math course. But like, you want to keep more of the money you're already making.
right.
You don't have to increase your sales. I love I'm putting my hand right over here, but that's how I feel about it. You don't have to increase your sales to make an extra $10,000 or $50,000. You know, it really is just about not letting money slip through the cracks. You cannot improve what you do not measure. I say this all the time. It is just the truth. If you do not track your profit margins, you cannot improve them because you don't know where you're at. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to look at it and go, oh, I'm short. Because, you know, some people will write to me and say, you know what, I'm really close. Or, you know what, I actually do hit those margins. I'm doing all right. So you may be pleasantly surprised when you double check yourself. And if you're disappointed, if you're like, I'm at 50 or I'm at 60% profit, just know that you can improve. Okay. So you cannot improve what you don't measure.
Well, so Alison, what did you, because as we're talking through this, this wasn't just like a coincidence where all of a sudden you were hit with an apple and you're like, Eureka, this is it. How did you gain this confidence with money and with working with numbers? Because I know that a lot of creative people are very intimidated by it. And it's almost like checking to make sure there's a boogeyman under the bed. Like, you don't do it because if you look, like, it might be there. So what was your thought process, and how did you kind of build up that confidence?
Well, that's such a great question. I am that way, to be honest. I hate numbers. I really do. I am a terrible accountant. I really do. I'm one of those people who's got like an envelope or, you know, shove it in, deal with it later. Like, that is me. Yep. I am not a great bookkeeper. I don't love the numbers, but I like to look in my bank account and see money in there. And so I really do think it's so important to track the profits. The confidence that I have really did come from learning these formulas consistently and these processes consistently. Every shop I worked at used recipes. Every shop I worked at used the same formulas, 3 times or 4 times markup on flowers, you know, 30 or 40% design fee. You know, some people will say, oh, I charge a 20% design fee. I'm like, I ain't never heard of nobody doing that. I have never worked in a shop, right, that charged less than 34%, or maybe it was 32%, but it was over 30%. And the last shop I worked in, I think, charged 38%. So, you know, to me, 30 to 40% for your design fee is like a comfortable range you should be in. So my confidence just came from experience, knowing it. So like when I started my business, I had no question about how I would price. I had no question about how this worked. I just did what I had been taught. Right. Multiple, 9 different shops all having the same thing. You know, I kind of like, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel here. So it's really that. But yeah, I don't like to, I'm not a faker. So I don't like to come here and be like, oh, in my books and my QuickBooks and no, I'm not like, I'm like everybody else. I hate the numbers too. Yeah. But I do like to be profitable in my business. And through, I think it also was, the motivation for me was I wanted to quit my second job, right? I didn't want to only be a part-time florist. So I had to make it profitable, and I had to make sure that I had enough money coming in that I could say, okay, I'm quitting a no winter job this year. The first year where there was no winter job was a big deal. And it comes from measuring what we're doing.
I love it.
So thanks for that question.
Yeah.
That was nice. So I told you I was going to say it multiple times. Follow your recipes.
Do it.
You got to. So I do hear people who are resistant. They go, but I'm creative. Okay, fine. But you're not in the business of just being creative, right? You're in the business of also probably having to pay your rent and feed your family and, pay a mortgage or whatever. So that is a crutch or something that you're hiding behind, I'm just going to say. Because if you're like, well, I can't make recipes, I would say, I don't believe that. You can make recipes and you can then deviate from them. If you want to then, when you get in your studio, mix around how you do things, that's fine. Just so long as you're buying based on recipes, so you're not overbuying or underbuying. That's the other thing. When people go, I don't do recipes, I'm like, well, then how do you even know you have enough stems to fill that centerpiece, right?
Totally.
So when they're really as important. Yeah, go ahead.
When you're doing recipes, do you give them to your bride? Does the bride ever see the recipe sheet?
Never.
Okay.
Right. 2 reasons. 1, it's none of their business.
Right.
But 2 is because I really do things very kind of old school. I don't use like Florist software or anything. I do everything by hand.
Yeah.
So I don't even make the recipes until like 3 weeks before the wedding. So it wouldn't do at that point, it does them no good. At 3 weeks before the wedding, to be like, oh, here are your recipes. It's just like, but we don't want brides to be counting, how many roses are in a bouquet or something like that. So I'll give them a general idea of what will be in the bouquet, right? Sure. It'll include hydrangea and roses and freesia or whatever, but I never ever give a stem count. Perfect. That's a really good question because some people do. They're like,
I've heard that. When we've done shows here, I've heard people say, well, I send them there, but then they magically just take the recipe and bring it to someone who's cheaper.
Who would have thunk?
I don't know. I love that. I love the transparency of the idea of, let me be as transparent with you as possible. Here's what it comes down to. This is what it looks like. But when it comes down to it, if you're losing business because you're showing your recipes, then don't show your underwear. Stop.
Yeah. Learn the lesson. And I think of it like this too. Does a chef come out and tell you every single ingredient that they put in your dinner?
Right.
No, the caterer is not going to tell you exactly how many dinner rolls they're going to provide for each table, or, they're just not going to do that. So you need to also, I need the flexibility, and that's built into my contract, right? That I might need to make substitutions. And what I've noticed is when florists, and it's usually newer florists, right? But when florists start giving out recipes, then they go, I can't believe the bride counted the roses and told me that there were only 6 when I said there would be 9. You set them up with this idea that they should be counting what's in here. So
it kind of stunts your creativity too, because I think if you're all of a sudden you're designing the bouquet and in your mind you were like, oh, 9 roses would be great, but then you look at it and you're like, oh no, 6 is like perfect.
Better.
Right? Then you do come into those situations of like, oh, well, I'm stuck with this recipe now. But having a recipe and letting it just kind of be there, and then letting your creative side come out.
Exactly. It's your guide more than anything for ordering. And then once you get the flowers, if you want to go ahead and do whatever you want, go ahead, do it. Just don't run out of what you need. You go, I still got 5 centerpieces left, but the recipes are also, I work mostly alone. I do have some help from time to time. But if you have employees, right, like a lot of florists do, not everybody works alone, your employees need these. It's not fair to expect them to help you be profitable and you're not giving them recipes. They need to know what they're allowed to use. So your recipes and ordering, they are as important to that bottom line as the markups and design fee. Because again, it doesn't matter what you charge if you overbuy, right? It doesn't matter. It's like, it doesn't matter how much I, exercise if I eat an entire cheesecake tonight, right? Maybe
Darn it.
there's a deficit, right?
Yep.
So don't underestimate the value of the time, the skill, and the care that you put into your work. It's just really essential that florists will say, but I feel guilty charging that much. Well, right. Don't. Keep
or
those wholesale orders.
Easy, right?
Yeah.
And then I hear a lot of people at shows be like, oh, you charge for for design time? Well, I've never thought of that. Well, you should start thinking about it because you have a skill and you have a talent that not necessarily everyone does. I certainly do not have that skill, and I will remind people time and time again that I can't just like whip up a beautiful bouquet of flowers, even though everyone assumes I can because I work for a floral wholesale company. But that is not a skill that I have, nor would I ever charge for that type of skill because I know that I cannot deliver. But I think that it's so important to remember that you can deliver it and you are delivering it.
That's right. You are special. Your skill is special.
Special.
And, yeah, you're special. And, and, when someone says, well, I enjoy it, or I couldn't charge for it. It's like, if that person is investing in a workshop at your wholesaler, that's what people charge the design fee for, because I invest in my education so I can learn to be better, and my skills so I can learn to be better. For you, the customer, now you pay me for that. Right. That's just how it works. I really like to remind people of this. Saving money is like making money. In other words, if you don't spend it, you get to keep it. So that's, again, why we want to set that profit goal and not a spending goal. I can't say that enough. There's one thing to walk away with: setting that profit goal of 70% or more. Okay, 70% is the floor on that profit.
Sure.
You can go higher.
So if you end up having like 75%, you're not gonna then be like, ooh, I should cut that back and do something different?
Nope. I mean, it depends, right? Like, just like everybody else, I have moments where I go, ooh, does that look like $125 centerpiece, or does that look like a $95 bouquet, or does that look like a $250 bridal bouquet? Because that's how we're wired. We're like, does it look like it's worth that?
Right.
I just do my math, right? I get the calculator, which is my phone, obviously, and I type in what I need to add up, and then I go, well, it adds up. So this is filled to value. Yeah. I had a situation last summer. Or was it last summer? I think it was last summer. I did so few weddings last summer. It's hard to imagine that it was, but I think it was. And I didn't buy enough roses. Like, I had under ordered. And when I did the profit margin, it was high, and it was too high, where I went, you know what? I owe this client a little bit more. I need to get those roses I forgot to order. And that's going to then make me feel whole and like I've provided value. Because I don't want to just make money. I want to provide value to the client too. And so that's why these things, they can go hand in hand. So I ended up getting the roses that I'd forgotten to order. I filled out, the arrangements, and then I felt good about what I delivered. I don't want to feel like I'm ripping my customer off. But I also don't think florists should feel like they are obligated to spend a certain amount, Mary Catherine. I think that's what they do. They go, if my customer pays me this, then I have to spend 30%. That's not the case. I really
like her. She's super nice, and her story is so great. And this couple has been through so. I mean, I can easily justify why I wouldn't want to charge as much or have a lower profitability rate for a certain person. But each time, like, you do that, a customer or a client might grow on you. And every time then you're you're not making anything. And in the end, like no one's going to pay for you to retire except for you.
Yep.
So,
yeah,
it's something to always remember.
And I think as you get more, further along in business, when you're really focused on honing your business machine, some people aren't. Some people are just like, just sort of is what it is. Every day I'm like, what's coming at me, right? And then there are people who are like, I'm gonna make a path and this is where I'm headed, right? So when I'm one of those people, I want to make a path. Where am I going? Who am I going to work with? I want to have more say so. And I attract customers. I like them all. I like them all. So what am I going to do? Give them all a discount? No. Ideally, you bring in customers that love you and respect you and you turn a profit. That's the sweet magic that we can make. All right. So I want to dive into our third point here, which is how much should you charge for delivery and setup? I get this question so many times. I have a whole video on it on my website, like a whole talking through it, but I'm going to go through like the most important things I think you want to consider, because there isn't one right answer to this. It isn't like a standard markup like it is for flowers and supplies. So choose your own adventure on delivery fees is my advice. So you can charge as a percentage, for example, like 10 to 20% of the total wedding or event sale. You can charge for your time, number of employees, and number of vehicles, right? You want to make sure if you have to rent a van or bring in extra people, if you have to sit around and wait for 2 hours to like flip a room, which happens in some markets, then you got to charge for that time.
Yep.
You can calculate your day rate. Like, what's your get out of bed fee? Like, we don't deliver for less than 500, or we don't deliver for less than 150 or less than 1,000. Like, you set your rate. What's your get out of bed fee? You can assess a PITA charge, right? A pain in the what. This is a fee for climbing a ladder, renting an extra van, returning on Sunday, or coming back at midnight to break things down. If something is undesirable or a pain, creates more work. Like even the renting the van, you're like, oh, well, the van costs $200. Okay, but how much does it cost you to have somebody else go with you to go get the van and come back and then go return the van? What does that time cost you?
You gotta calculate the gas,
all of it.
If you're having someone at the end of the night pick up, because you're not like, I don't think I would ever pick up at midnight. I think I would always pay someone to like go pick up the stuff at midnight. Some young person who likes to be up all the time anyways.
It's the worst. But yeah, it has to happen sometimes. I mean, I have to say, in like 19 years of business, I really haven't had to go out at midnight more than probably just a few times. And the better relationship you get with the venue, they might be more forgiving. Like, yeah, you can come Sunday morning, but still, it's still a pain.
Right. It's still extra time that you have to put in.
Absolutely. So you got to assess your PITA charge if needed. And like, you may need to kind of work through all of these. There isn't one right one. So you might go, well, what's 20% or 10% of the total? Well, that's too low. So now I'm going to have a day rate and let me assess that. Or I'm going to charge for the number of hours. So, but I forgot I have to climb a ladder for that thing. So, you want to make sure you're assessing everything you have to do and then setting your own fee. And really important to know that like a breakdown, like that Sunday breakdown, right? That's an additional fee. So if you want to build it in as like set up and breakdown, that's fine. But when you're calculating it on your end, it's like, this is how much Sunday costs. This is how much Saturday costs, so that you're not shorting yourself. That's really, really important. I do actually break it down on my invoice as breakdown, so they see that it's separate, so they understand that there's a charge for it.
Got it.
But you can do it however you want.
Right. Well,
the most important thing is to charge what you're worth, though. I'm sorry, Mary Catherine, what'd you say?
No, I just said it's good to know that you do break that down, because there are some things that, they don't need to know, but I think sometimes it's good to say, you can knock an extra $200 off if you don't want me to come, tear down.
Yep.
And then they're like,
Well,
okay, great.
that often happens when people talk about rentals, right? They'll go,
Sure.
so, should we rent containers or buy them? And to me, I love to sell containers. I love it because I don't want to go back, and it doesn't save my customer money. What you save by renting from me, you pay for me to go pick it up.
Sure.
So I'd rather you keep it and give it away, because I know your grandma's going to be putting one in her trunk anyway. And so let's let her, I don't want the caterer running after, you can't take that, but yeah, the less you do rentals, the less you have to go back.
Right. Well, and when if a bride is thinking about, sending flowers, table center pieces home with their guests, if there's no vase to put it in, it's kind of awkward to take home, transplant, and then when you get it home and you're like, this is great, but I've got nothing to put it in, or, whatever it is. So I love that idea of just reminding the bride that, it could be like a really good thank you present at the end for specific people who maybe helped out a little bit more.
It's nice to be able to give the flowers away at the end of an event. People love it. I'm always surprised sometimes by what people take home. So, whether they're having a brunch the next day or whatever, if I can sell something without a breakdown and removal, I am winning at life. That's how I feel.
I love it.
So I'm going to do just a real quick pricing recap here. Know your numbers. Really, really important. If you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. Calculate your profits on your sales and charge for your time and expertise. You really do deserve it. Charge for your delivery and setup, because this is not a free service. And follow your flower math formulas to price like a flower shop and maximize your margins. Again, your margin has to be as high as possible because all your other expenses come out of that, every other expense. So remember, maximize your profit. You can do this, because I do it. You can maximize your profit and create beautiful designs that your clients will love. You don't have to sacrifice one for the other. You can do it all. So price with confidence as you move forward. Don't feel guilty about charging what you're worth, especially if you're charging industry standards, right? You're not ripping people off if you're just charging this industry standards. It's how we run our business and stay in business. And of course, if you need help, if you're like, I'm just not reaching it, or, I need help walking through the recipes, my course Flower Math will show you how to do that. And that's available on my website at realflowerbusiness.com anytime. It's not a course that I made with like an open enrollment period and then it closes up.
Sure.
I could do that. And I would probably like sell more when I do that, right? Because you got to get it now or it's going away. Yeah. But I'm so seriously, like, the reason I made Flower Math is so people could learn to price, not so that I could make the most money in the shortest amount of time. So like, it is there anytime. It is always on sale. So it is always there if you want to jump into it, if you need a pricing boost. And even really experienced florists will tell me, like, I went through it and I feel more confident. I got a refresher and I got a few things I realized that I could tighten up. So whether you're new or experienced, the course is there for you anytime. And I do have a money back guarantee, as I mentioned to you before we went live.
I heard that and I was like, oh, wait, what? Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. I think I love just your perspective on this too, because I think that your flower math can come in really handy, even when you think about like Mother's Day or Valentine's Day, when things get really tight and people, you're turning out a lot of stuff at once. I know from the wholesaler side of it, we do produce catalogs for our customers. And so our customers, when it comes to like Valentine's Day or Mother's Day, any type of holiday, we have pre-book pricing for fresh, for all of our other, for every department we have, you have pre-book price. And I think that is really important to capitalize on, especially if you can make recipes in advance, because those prices go up after.
Yeah.
And it's not that we want them to go up. It's just that, what happens is freight goes up because everyone around the world now needs flowers for Valentine's, or they need flowers for Mother's Day, or peace lily plants, everything goes up depending on the season of it. So if you can get ahead of the game, that's where you can start finding your margins too, is that, finding out when we have our pre-book prices. And even if you just do, your leather leaf and your roses or whatever it is, or your filler, that's at least a good start, because then as you keep going, you can keep adding on. But then, at least that you got that first price, that better price margin for you.
Yeah, you locked it in. And it's a really good point. Like when you're doing holiday stuff, you want to have these things with a recipe, right? I don't even have a clue how someone would have staff and not have these recipes. And you can, you work off of real numbers. How many did you sell last year? What are your projections for this year? How many of this arrangement are you going to make? And then how many roses do you need to do that? And you really can turn this, what seems like complicated stuff, complicated numbers. It's really easy. It's logical. And it follows a flow that makes sense when you really are focused on the fact that you're running a business.
Yes.
And this isn't a hobby for you, and you have employees to pay and yourself, right? And how many business owners, how many flower shop owners pay their employees and not themselves? Well, do a little check, little microphone check back on your profit margins, right? And take a look and see how you're doing.
Well, and it's also kind of comes down to the working smarter, not harder type of situation as well. Of, if you do know that Valentine's Day or Mother's Day is coming up and you have these set recipes, you could have, if you hire some friends to come in just to contract through you for a little bit, they can know the recipes. You could do it ahead of time with them, walk them through it. You can pre-book with us. There's so many ways that you can start to figure out ways to make your business run smooth without over promising, without feeling like burnt out right after, because it's hard. Doing Valentine's or Mother's Day, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And we know it here too. We, as like at Koehler, we're right there with you guys in the trenches. We always say we're in the trenches right now. It's 2 weeks till go time and everyone's on high alert, but we really sympathize, and we try and, just like with Alison's flower math, do everything we can to really help you guys be as successful as possible, because it is so important. It is your livelihood. It's your business. It's how you buy ballet classes for your children, or put money or put food on the table. It's a big deal, and you guys need to remember that it's a big deal. So have confidence, because you're great at what you do. And the fact that Alison took the time here today to come and share her knowledge and her recipes, it's really helpful. So thank you so much, Alison.
Thanks for having me. I will talk pricing anytime. So if you have people who have follow-up questions, we can tackle that sometime too. But yeah, thanks for giving me a chance to spread the word of, you're worth it.
Worth it. Yes. Underneath the comments on this YouTube video, I will be putting a link to your flower math so that everyone knows where to find you. I'm also going to put a link to Alison's Patreon page. If you don't know what that is, it's nothing crazy or complicated. It's just a space where Alison can share her recipes. She shares knowledge. There are different price point levels. So if you're like, well, I can't spend $50 a month, I think Alison has like a $3.
Yeah. So the Patreon is sort of like I like to think of it as a non-Facebook feed, where every month I add lessons in there. They're based on questions. So if someone says, like, for example, someone said, can you help, how do I make an email list? Well, funny, you should add, right? So then I'll make a lesson that walks you through some of these things. So it really is like more attention. It's more attention than I can give in like a public Facebook group, like my Facebook group, which is free, and you can join that too.
Ooh, okay. Maybe we'll link that too.
Yeah, sure. I'll shoot you all the links. I'll shoot you a link of links.
I love it.
But the Patreon is a great place to be able to share. It's funny because it's a little over a year now that I've been doing it, maybe not quite a year and a half. And I share so much stuff I never thought I would share. Like, I take you deep into what I do in my business. One of my favorite things though is my marketing mavens tier. And that the people in that tier get monthly blog post prompts. So like, what to post every week. And I always give you 5 every month, even if there's only 4 weeks in the month. So, but it gives you like, a little bit of intention for the month of what you might want to talk about.
Yeah.
And I think people are kind of digging that. So yeah.
I love that. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. Well, because we talked about if you guys didn't catch the last episode we did with Alison, I'll also link that below. But we talked about how important blogging is. And I think sometimes we get so in our head and deep into our own business that it's like, well, what do I talk about? Well, here we go. Problem solved. That's really cool.
It's fun because that is the hardest thing for florists, for anybody, forget florists.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. I'm not a good writer, right? People love to say that I'm not a good writer. Well, okay, try writing something and let's find out. Prove it. Let me see how bad you are. I'm going to share this with you because you're going to like this. So since we're back to the blogging for a second, I know I wrote it down somewhere and I think it's probably on a scrap piece of paper here, if you could see what's going on right here. But I was listening to a very smart woman, Vanessa Hicks is her name, and she was talking about the importance of blogging. And what she was saying is your average Instagram post has about 48 hours of SEO life, about 48 hours that post is going to be seen. But a blog post has 700 days worth of SEO power, right? So, you really want to think about where we're spending our time. I have another presentation I do. You can also find it on my website called 3 Numbers to Know in Your Business. And, we always focus on our followers, right? We get sucked into the followers. We don't want to focus on the followers. We want to focus on those 700 days, people. We want to focus on that long-term SEO. So anyway, know your pricing and blog. That's our moral of our story.
Yes. Pricing and blog. I think I love it. That's
all the sexy stuff. I love to talk about all the sexy.
Well, and there are tools out there. There's Grammarly. I love Grammarly. Whenever I write a blog post, I go right to Grammarly first, and it, tells me where my grammatical errors are and if it's
very good,
sounds weird or not. I really enjoy that too. So, there's always tools and tips and tricks, and entrepreneurship is huge. And when you're a small business owner, you're an entrepreneur. It's what you are. So don't ever think that just because it doesn't say floral business 101 that you can't get something out of it. But I love that Alison has all these resources for you all who are listening right now, because that is something that is catered to florists. So you don't have to sit there and weed through like, well, can I use this for my business or can I not use this for your business?
Right. How do I apply
did the work for you?
Yeah, I only teach what I do. So I don't teach things that I haven't already tested, vetted, and that, other people can repeat. I think one of the trickiest things when we're floral designers navigating, like, where do we invest and who do we trust and do we buy that workshop, or, or we're asking other people for their opinion, like, was it a good workshop or was it a good course? You want to look for people who you trust, who seem like you, right? Who maybe you want somebody who seems quote unquote better, right, at a task, but someone who you can relate to. And what we end up, I think, from a lot of people really marketing to florists outside of floristry, right? Going, want to learn to be a florist, learn to do this. They pick teachers who are not duplicable. They are special stars and you can't get their magic. And then they're teaching you their magic and you're like, but why didn't that magic work for me? It's because you don't have that magic. So you don't have to be a luxury florist to do what I do, right? You can be a normal florist and level up your business with some of the stuff that I teach. And I'm an open book, so you can always contact me directly. If you have questions, or if you're like, I don't know if this is worth it, or if this is right for me, I'm a real person. So just reach out.
True. Well, and the nice thing is that I love that you introed yourself in the beginning, because you did work in flower shops. So even though you're event business driven right now, it doesn't mean that you can't have a really great conversation or create great content for people who aren't just event business,
Absolutely.
And I think
I
we
have
proved that
such
today, too.
respect. Yeah, such respect for flower shop owners. I mean, really and truly. And that is a main driving force for why I made Flower Math, because you shouldn't be working from your garage undercutting the flower shop down the street. You should be pricing on par with them and getting work because of how great you are, not because you're undercutting them on purpose.
Right. Well, and it does muddy the industry. Any industry that you're in, if you're the person who's really undercutting everyone, like you don't make a lot of friends, and people know who you are. And think about, if you're like in a situation where you need help, are people going to jump on to help you, or are you just going to be forever that person who undercuts everyone?
Right.
And we're so much of I think even now, the fact that like with COVID happening and with a lot of restaurants closing, it's more important to have that community of florists who can pitch in and help each other, or who can work with the restaurant industry and maybe like create something beautiful together. But I think it's so super important to remember who you're pricing out or under.
Yeah.
Doing it.
Yeah. Respect your competition, and more than anything, respect yourself. If they can charge it, you can charge it. Let me end it with this little piece. For the people who are like, but I don't have a shop, and how can I charge? Or I don't need to, right? I don't need to charge as much because I don't have the overhead. The service I provide is different than a flower shop. So the attention I give them might be different, right? Like I may actually give them more than a flower shop. Maybe not, right? Depends on your business. But for me, I like to think that the personalized service I give them makes up for my lack of storefront, right? They don't need me to have a store. They need me to show up on time with their wedding flowers, right? Yeah. And that's what I do.
It's so true. Well, Alison, thank you so much for spending some time with us today to talk about.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, as always, guys, thank you for listening and watching. If you took the time to watch the whole thing, I do appreciate that Alison does have slides for the visual learners in the room. That will be me. So as always, like, comment, subscribe. We really enjoy hearing from you guys. And if you have any questions for Alison about anything we covered today, put them in the comments. We'll be able to then follow up with Alison and do another video and help you guys work through those moments, or just shoot Alison an email or a DM on her Facebook and Instagram pages. Go to her website. I'm sure you'll find way more information there. I'll have all of the links below, so don't stress about if you didn't get a specific link to something, because we'll have it for you. All right, have a great day. Bye, guys.
Thank you.